vegan leader, top beacon of the world.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Nos programas offrent plusieurs langues. Veuillez visiter suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Nuestros programas ofrecen varios idiomas. Visiten suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Nossos programas oferecem vários idiomas. Acesse suprememastertv.com/schedule.
In the stimulating artistic atmosphere of Paris, Impressionism, Post-Impressionism, Japanese art, and more inspired and nourished Vincent's creativity and hastened the maturity of his artistic style. Vincent van Gogh, infusing life and heart into each brushstroke, part 2 of 3. Continue watching to find out more.
If you visit the Netherlands, you will be greeted with "Hoe gaat het met jou?" That's "How are you?" in Dutch. I'm Tessa. The righteous people of the Netherlands respect your noble and benevolent actions to protect all lives on earth. Welcome to our show, Vincent van Gogh, Infusing Life and Heart into Each Brushstroke, Part 2 of 3. Vincent van Gogh, born in 1853, is one of the most beloved artists in the history of art, although he was mostly unappreciated in his lifetime. Being the eldest son of a pastor, Vincent grew up in the southern Netherlands and worked unsuccessfully as an art dealer, and then briefly as a teacher, bookseller, and lay preacher in a mining community in southern Belgium. In 1880, at the age of 27, he found his vocation in art and devoted the rest of his life to perfecting his expressive language in this form in order to serve humanity. Vincent once said, "I want to give the wretched a brotherly message. When I sign my paintings, Vincent, it is as one of them." From then on, Vincent lived an extremely austere life, often having to make a choice between pigments and food. He was not commercially successful and sold only one painting during his lifetime. His brother Theo, an art dealer, provided him with much-needed financial and moral support. Although he received a few brief introductory lessons at the beginning of his artistic career and later studied at the Antwerp Academy for a few months, Vincent was largely self-taught, practicing feverishly and absorbing inspiration from works by old masters such as Rembrandt, Frans Hals, and Peter Paul Rubens. Contemporary artists he admired, in particular Jean-François Millet, had a profound influence on Vincent's artistic development, especially on choosing the rural life as a subject matter. The two artists shared a common view of great respect for farmers and laborers. In 1886, Vincent arrived in Paris, the cultural center of the world at the time. He moved in with Theo and studied for 2 months at Fernand Comon's studio, the Atelier Comon, where he met and befriended fellow students Émile Bernard, Louis Anquetin, and Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec. In Paris, Impressionist works were easily accessible at the time, and Theo himself kept Impressionist paintings in his own gallery. He introduced Vincent to Camille Pissarro, Georges Seurat, and other similar artists. In addition, Vincent grew more fascinated with Japanese ukiyo-e woodcut prints and began to collect them. Vincent even imitated a few of them, as in his Bridge in the Rain, for instance. Not only did the beauty of Japanese art inspire Vincent, but also the naturalism and philosophy they expressed spoke to his heart. Later, in his letter to Theo from September 24, 1888, Vincent wrote,
"Just think of that. Isn't it almost a new religion that these Japanese teach us, who are so simple and live in nature as if they themselves were flowers? And we wouldn't be able to study Japanese art, it seems to me, without becoming much happier and more cheerful, and it makes us return to nature, despite our education and our work in a world of convention."
In 1887, Vincent came across the magazine Paris Illustré Le Japon, issued in May 1886, with a cover featuring a reproduction of revered Japanese artist Keisai Eisen's courtesan wearing uchikake with dragon design. He used a grid to copy and enlarge the figure and painted Japonazeri or ran, known as the courtesan, after Keisai Eisen, framing it with the Asian motifs of bamboo, cranes, and water lilies. This Japanese influence had a lasting impact on Vincent's art and is evident in the works of his later years. On May 15, 1886, the Impressionists held their 8th and last exhibition at the Maison Dorée restaurant. Works displayed during the show indicated the coming of a new current forming in the growing waters of Impressionism, namely Georges Seurat's A Sunday Afternoon on the Island of La Grande Jatte. The French art critic Félix Fignon invented the term New Impressionism to describe the coming artistic movement in his review of the exhibition. Marked by Seurat's pointillism, which involves juxtaposing small dots of complementary colors for optical effect, a group of rebellious artists who were looking for new directions for their creative expressions parted ways with Impressionism. In 1887, Vincent arranged an exhibition at the Restaurant du Cholet for paintings by Émile Bernard, Louis Anquetin, Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec, Arnold Hendrik König, and himself. Bernard and Anquetin sold their first paintings, and Vincent made an exchange with the painter Paul Gauguin, whom he had just met. Creative viewers, we will now pause for a moment for a brief message. We'll return shortly. Please stay tuned to Supreme Master Television.
Vegan man, how handsome!
Welcome back to a show featuring world-renowned Dutch painter Vincent van Gogh. From March 1886 to February 1888, while staying in Paris, Vincent was exposed to the works of the Impressionists, observed the innovations of the Post-Impressionists, and became enthused with Japanese art. Under these influences, his style underwent significant changes, and his palette became lighter and more vibrant, with the elements of pointillism and Japanese prints becoming visible in his works. Portrait of Pierre Tanguy, painted in 1887, is the culminating work of more than 200 paintings Vincent finished in this period. The sitter, Julien François Tanguy, called Pierre Tanguy, Father Tanguy, as the artist looked upon him as a father figure, owned an art supply shop in Paris where the artists often met. The shop also displayed the works of artists such as Paul Cézanne, Georges Seurat, Paul Gauguin, and Vincent van Gogh, who were later considered the leading lights of modern art. Vincent painted 3 portraits of Pierre Tanguy, with the Paris version being the final one. The transition from the initial darker color tone of the Copenhagen portrait to the final vibrant and cheerful Paris version illustrates Vincent's artistic evolution. The complementary colors, painted with short, broken brushstrokes, especially on the shade and the sitter's pants area, is unmistakable of pointillism's influence. The space between the sitter and the background that is incorporated into many Japanese ukiyo-e genre prints is flat, one of the typical post-impressionist space treatments. Although Vincent observed and absorbed what he learned in Paris, he always stood firmly on the foundation of his own unique style, along with the heartfelt messages he wanted to express. However, large cities were never ideal environments for Vincent. Despite the artistic stimulation, he found life in Paris physically and mentally exhausting after living there for nearly 2 years. Vincent longed for outdoor living and communing with nature under the sun. In February 1888, he departed Paris for Arles, a town in Provence, south of France. After spring arrived, the blossoming fruit trees incited Vincent's optimism. This joyful scenery also reminded him of what he saw in Japanese art. He enjoyed long walks around Arles and visited nearby villages. His artistry also blossomed, and his inspiration and aspiration made his Arles period more prolific. Flowing trees, open fields, laboring farmers, and bridges are the motifs he painted with intense color and great enthusiasm. He also started to experiment more with color applications. In the beginning of May 1888, Vincent rented the 4 rooms of the Yellow House at 2 Place Lamartine. He temporarily used it as a studio and storage area and took time to decorate and furnish the rooms and prepared them for a commune in the south for like-minded artists. In September, Vincent painted Yellow House. In the letter he wrote to his brother, Theo, on September 29, 1888, he drew a pencil sketch of the composition of this painting. The right wing of the building in the painting was rented by the artist. Vincent used the 2 large rooms on the ground floor for a workshop and kitchen, and the 2 upstairs rooms as bedrooms. The bedroom on the right corner, with both shutters open, is Vincent's guest room, where Gogh later lived briefly. The room next to it, with the shutters almost closed, is Vincent's bedroom. In the same letter, Vincent wrote,
Likewise, croquis of a square number 30 canvas, showing the house and its surroundings under a sulfur sun, under a pure cobalt sky. That's a really difficult subject. But I want to conquer it for that very reason. Because it's tremendous. These yellow houses in the sunlight, and then the incomparable freshness of the blue. All the ground's yellow too.
Vincent used 2 complementary primary colors in the painting, blue for the sky and yellow for what is underground, to make the whole painting more vibrant. Yellow gradually became a symbolic color for Vincent, and he used it increasingly from the Arles period onward. The Yellow House was a symbol of the aspiration that he looked forward to fulfilling. Precious viewers, thank you for your company today during Vincent van Gogh infusing life and heart into each brushstroke, part 2 of 3. Please return next Thursday, July 22nd for part 3. Up next is Going Meatless with Christy Middleton, Vegan, Transforming the Way You Eat and Live, part 4 of 4, right after noteworthy news. In the celestial radiance, may we all cherish our physical existence as we meditate on the divine.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule and suprememastertv.com/AJAR.
Vegan woman in high demand.